This is the Mercedes-AMG GT43 4-door. It's essentially a more practical, more dailyable version of their GT Halo car. So thanks to my friends at Mercedes-Benz of Milwaukee for letting me have a go to see if this 4-door coupe holds a candle to one of the best sports cars on the road. Now this thing is wearing an AMG badge on the back, which means we'll start with the heart of the lion, the engine. Now of course, this is a 3-liter straight-six turbocharged engine, but that's not even kind of the whole story. What you have here is a 48-volt mild hybrid system, so it takes the 362 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, and with the help of that small battery pack and the electric motor, you can boost horsepower by 21 horsepower for short periods of time. In fact, this 43 variant is almost the same engine we tested and really liked in the E53, and this AMG GT does come in a 53 trim with that engine. The difference here is that this is the entry into the range, and what that means is, from an engine perspective, this 43 motor is missing the electric supercharger. But it still feels pretty quick. 0 to 60 is done in 4.8 seconds. So it's not gonna peel your face off, but in a 4,500 pound 4-door, that's really not that bad. And that's because you're working with the electric torque and the immediacy of that from the mild hybrid system, plus the 4MATIC plus all-wheel drive traction, and one of my favorite gearboxes, Mercedes 9-speed. The 9-speed speed shift here from Mercedes-AMG it's just so much fun. There's so much drama, it's quick, it makes a good sound, and you get this like lightning crack the second you do a shift. I mean, I might like this gearbox more than the ZF that you get in the BMWs. It's a hot take. So from a powertrain perspective, especially around town, this thing feels very special, and I think you'll start to notice that trend as we continue through our review of this car. So, handling then. Now, like I said, this is a 4,500 pound car, which also is sub 400 horsepower. So what it needs to do is hide the weight as best it can. And I think it does, at least on power. And when you get to a corner, you have adaptive dampers, and it does keep the weight kind of from flopping over, keeps the car very neutral. And of course, that 4MATIC Plus system helps send power to that rear axle. So if you really want to and you're at the limit, you can use that you can use the throttle, I should say, to spin the car, to rotate the car, because it is a nice and neutral chassis. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, the weight isn't invisible. It doesn't magically do away with the fact that it's, 4,500 pounds, but the place that I notice the weight most is under braking. Not on corner entry, not on mid-corner, not even on corner exit. It's got good pull. The place that I notice it is on braking. And even still, the brake pedal has a nice linear travel to it. It's got good bite. It's fine. I just am aware of what I'm driving when I'm braking. The steering is a decent quickness, but not with too much feel. But again, this is a Mercedes, so there's the other side of the badge that we have to consider. Yes, the Mercedes part of the AMG. This was another thing that we talked about with the E53 quite a bit, and that's the smoothness that you get from this powertrain. The nice thing about the mild hybrid system here is that when you want it to smooth back and relax things, it does take the edge off. It takes the edge off of things like your auto start stop. It takes the edge off of some more abrupt gear changes, and etc. The steering lightens up in comfort mode, the suspension softens back and relaxes, and what you're left with then is a super refined, very quiet, and incredibly luxurious ride that feels as special as this thing looks. I know it's a cliche, but it does do the Jekyll and Hyde split personality thing very well. And since it's not the full-bore 63 version, it doesn't have to be so aggressive, so it's more like a really good luxury car that can do sporty, rather than a really aggressive sports car that can do luxury. And for me, that's a good balance. Okay, so the GT43 by Mercedes-AMG, it's not bad. It's got a good amount of kick, but it does the luxury and the Mercedes thing really, really well. If you want more of the kick and less of the Mercedes experience, I would go up to maybe the 53 or the 63 or the 63S or whatever, but this, as it stands, is a nice, well-rounded car with a good amount of zip. Now, when we talk about the way that this thing looks, I think this is part of the reason that you're getting something like this. This is built on the E-Class chassis. It's about 5 inches longer than a typical E-Class, but what you get here is a lot of presence. You have this huge, you can see it from this angle here, the front fenders kind of bulge out, like really pronounced. I haven't seen this from a front fascia in a long time, but it's got a really aggressive stance, mega power dome hood here, Panamericana grille, very AMG. You've got specific running lights up here. Of course, this is night packaged out, so it's got all the black accents in your lower fascia, window treatments, and the side view mirror. But what you get here is something that just looks mean. It looks pretty wild. And you guys have been seeing it from the rollers as well. So as we get along the side here, we've got excuse me, we've got 20-inch wheels wrapped in Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires. These are a fantastic tire. It's a staggered set actually, so you've got two 65s up front and two 95s for a little bit more meat on the back. Of course, this is the 4MATIC Plus. You've got the black chrome or the dark chrome or whatever they call it, emblem here on the front fender. So it won't go full detached or full rear wheel drive for drift mode as you would get in the 63, but it is a very rear bias system and it'll change the bias of where the torque is being split based on your drive mode. This then is the only thing I don't really like about the styling. It's just kind of an unnecessary little styling element. Maybe it's just to bring a little bit more attention because this is, after all, the GT rather than the E-Class. So the E-Class won't get this here, but it will get the Turbo 4MATIC badge. So again, moving down the side, this is what you're buying here. This is the kind of the coupe-ified sedan thing. This is the long, really substantial looking thing. Another thing that I should say, and I didn't mention this, but the wheels and the tires. You know, a lot of times these sports cars, they get low profile tires. You get a pretty decent sidewall here, and it just, with the 20-inch wheels, it just looks beefy. It looks substantial. Of course, you've got a flared rear hip. You've got a little dark chrome accenting on your door handles as well as typical Mercedes. But then again, it terminates down in this tapering roof line. You do have a deployable spoiler. You can deploy it with a button or after you hit a certain speed. And then of course, the taillights themselves are modeled after the original Halo sports car. Again, dark chrome or black chrome badging on the back of your AMG, your 3.8 star, and your GT43. And then all the way down at the bottom, of course, you have a black diffuser and quad tip. It's got a nice little burble tune. It's not quite as loud as something like a BMW M Sport exhaust. It's not quite as raucous, but again, this is the sophisticated man's Mercedes, and they save the more aggressive, more, let's arguably childish exhaust for something like the GT63. But let's step inside and see how it comes together. Okay, so like a big part of what I was saying on the exterior was what you're getting here is something special, something with a lot of road presence, something you don't see much on the road. So when you do see it, it is like, there's a special sense of occasion to it, and you get that on the interior as well. It's kind of interesting the way that they've designed this. So the upper dash portion with your dual 12.3-inch screens is very E-Class. So we won't dive super deep into some of the tech features because we just did a full comprehensive review in the E53, and it's all the same stuff here. So it's running your MBUX system. It's a completely customizable gauge cluster. You have a million ways to interact with your infotainment system, whether you want to use the steering wheel, the trackpad, touchscreen, whatever. Of course, I guess the point that I'm trying to say, or the point that I'm trying to make here is that it comes together to be a very special, a very opulent, a very Mercedes experience, and something that you don't get in something like an Audi or a BMW. But then here on your lower portion, in your center console, where you would have your trackpad for your infotainment and your gear selector here, it's exactly modeled after the GT Halo car. So the design here with these 4 individual buttons or screens or whatever, it's designed to look like an engine block of a V8. Ergo the GT, GTS, GTR, Black Series, whatever it may be. So it has the actual physical shifter here rather than up here on your column of your steering column like you would have on the E-Class that we had. So it is a little bit more unique experience because you don't get this design in any other Mercedes. And again, with something like a BMW, something like an Audi, your interior design is very similar across models. So to have something very unique, very specific to this car, I think goes a long way for me. Plus, the way that it's laid out with the leathers, the stitchings, the aluminums, the perforations, like these seats look incredible. They don't light up like a BMW. They actually aren't even cooled in this, which is a little bit odd, but they do look really cool. They have a nice bolstering. and it's just really nice. You know, the speakers look opulent and drilled and just special. And of course, the ambient lighting, and we talked about this in the E-Class as well. Mercedes does some of the best ambient lighting in the game. It's in here vents, so when you make it warmer, the lighting goes red, cooler, the lighting goes blue. And then of course you have your different settings, so you can select a specific color, or you can go to like lounge and get split between like blue and pink, or, you know, track pace, which is like yellow and red. And, you know, all of that stuff kind of comes together to make the experience a little bit more special. All of the stuff for your driving experience also is very customizable. So you have the Mercedes-AMG wheel, which looks fantastic. There's a lot of gloss black for the stuff you interact with, but it's fine. It doesn't get too smudgy, so you can change your drive mode on the right, and then you've got your exhaust or your parking camera or whatever you want. You can customize it to your heart's content, and that's really the point. You can make this car whatever you want. A lot of the tech features are very good. You've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, you've got 360 cameras with a whole bunch of stuff, park assist, your adaptive cruise and lane keep works very well. It's a very thoroughly modern car. In terms of storage, it's a little bit more compromised with this center console design. It's a lot about the design and less the practicality. So you have a little bit of a storage area up here. You've got, of course, your glove box where you can get fragrance insert, you know, but you've got this little center bin here as well. So I mean, you can put stuff in here, but it is designed to be driven, or, you know, have that sort of feel to it. Of course, up top here you have a pano roof, which is almost looks more like two normal size sunroofs, because there's this big bar here. And of course, that's more than likely, and somebody will correct me in the comments, but that's more than likely because Mercedes puts, you know, safety over pretty much anything else. Volvo and Mercedes are some of the pioneers in terms of safety. You know, so this is probably something to do with the structural integrity if you were to roll the car. So that's another nice thing, something that we don't talk about much here on the channel, but safety is important, obviously, especially if you have kids or loved ones in the car with you. Then in terms of the back seats, they are usable. It's not something, again, that I would want to sit in at 6'1". You know, I wouldn't want to sit across country back there necessarily, but I could. This is, of course, a 2+2. I guess you couldn't even say 2+2. It's bigger than that, but this is a 4-seat option. There is no center seat. You just have a storage area with some cup holders and some charging as well. You also cannot drop that middle area, that kind of armrest, unless you get the executive rear seating package. So that also goes in tandem with the fact that you can't drop the rear seats at all to get into the trunk, which leads me to the trunk, which is a hatchback. And it's great. It's a great size. It works really well. You can put long stuff in there, again, if you option the executive seating package, but it is a nice and usable package. And that's really what you're getting with the GT 4-door rather than the GT. So it's taking that kind of DNA, quote unquote, of the GT Halo car and making it more usable and more dailyable for people that want to drive it all the time. But with that, I think that's probably a good time to get into the final thoughts. So, the Mercedes-AMG GT43. It's an interesting car. It's quick, it handles well, it makes a good sound, it's got rear seat and hatch practicality, but I think the best thing about it is that it feels special. You don't see many of these on the road, the interior is opulent, and it's the same as you'd find in any other Benz. And at the end of the day, it just has that cool, unique persona. So thank you to my friends again at Mercedes-Benz of Milwaukee for letting me have a go.